to start our recording right there. Okay. So welcome, Jodine, and welcome everyone tonight. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Thank you for joining us again. And I am just going to hand it right over to Jodine to start off our travel talk tonight.
Great.
She is with Trafalgar. So take it away, Jodine. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Well, welcome again, everyone. Nice to see all your faces. So today, as Leah mentioned, I'm going to discuss with you my Devon and Cornwall trip. So actually, it was exactly a year ago to the day that I was there. So
wow.
It's kind of a little depressing for me right now, but good so that I can actually talk about the trip to pretend that I'm still there.
And you'll be seeing all those lovely memories that pop up in your social media, right?
Exactly.
To remind you.
That's the only reason why I remember that it was today almost. So yeah, but I mean, these are the great memories that we want you to create as well. So, so hopefully after seeing this presentation, you'll be like, oh, I really want to go see some of those places.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get going here. Let's see. So why travel with us? Of course, and some of you have been through this before, so sorry for the repetitiveness, but we are part of the Travel Corporation, which is a 100-year-old family-run business. They own 42 different brands that you can see on the screen here. Trafalgar and Cost Saver, which are the ones that I look after. Contiki, which is good for 18 to 35-year-olds. Then you have Insight and Luxury Gold, Uniworld. Brendan Vacations looks after our Ireland program. And then we have all these other brands as well that you see here. But as you can see, the Travel Corporation, who owns Trafalgar, has a lot of companies. So, you know, some people sometimes worry about what's going to happen after COVID. We are a sound company. We are in debt to no one. So we will be around. And another one of the ones that I want to point out to you on there would be Treadright, as well as Evans and Evans. And Red Carnation. Red Carnation hotels are luxury hotels that, in fact, they have some castles. They have Ashford Castle in Ireland. So we do use some of those hotels as well. But Evans and Evans are what we call our ground handlers, and they look after any tours that you might want. So when you get to London, for instance, and you maybe want to do a hop-on, hop-off tour or something like that, they're the people that would sell you some excursions like that before the trip actually gets started. And then I'll talk a little bit about our Treadright Foundation, which is our not-for-profit. So with Trafalgar, we always want to make sure that you have, we have three main, what we call pillars. And one of those is called our Real Connections. So with our Real Connections, we want to make sure that you're connected with the destination with our Be My Guest experiences, which are where you're going to go to a local family farm or business and learn all about the business itself and really connect yourself with that family. Our Dive into Culture are more cultural experiences where we're going to bring you into places and you're going to get to see the culture of that particular destination. A hidden gem. This is actually a hidden gem here that you might see when you're on the Devon and Cornwall trip. It's actually the Jamaica Inn. It's not in Jamaica. It is called the Jamaica Inn, but it's, you may be familiar with it. There was a movie that was made, and it was an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Basically, the Jamaica Inn was built in 1750, and it's known for the setting of Daphne du Maurier's novel of the same name, the Jamaica Inn. And then, of course, Alfred Hitchcock made a movie of it. So supposedly it's haunted too. I don't know. When I was there, I didn't see anybody, so that was good. Always good when you don't see any extra people that you shouldn't be seeing. And then, of course, we have our Stays with Stories. On this particular trip, we don't have any Stays with Stories, but our trips do have them. About 33% of our trips include a Stays with Story where you will be staying at a hotel or property that has a large history behind it, or you could be maybe in Norway and you could stay at the Geringer, Hotel Geringer, right in the Geringer Ford. So the stories that you'll tell your friends when you get back are created from the hotel that you're staying at. And then, of course, we have our Make a Difference, which is where we're connecting you with the destination, with Treadright, and you're giving back to the community. Again, real ease, so that would be our transportation. So we have, of course, our coaches. You can see in this picture that the entrance, there's a back entrance and there's a front entrance. So there's two entrances to make it easy for unloading and unloading. We have air conditioned on here. There's a bathroom, as well as USB ports, Wi-Fi, and electrical outlets. So the electrical outlets and USB or you could have both. And they are already loaded onto the coach by the time you get onto the coach. One thing I forget to mention sometimes is that we also do what they call, oh, my internet is unstable. Oh, be stable. Is that we do rotational seating. So every day that you get onto the coach, your name will be on the seat with the person that you're traveling with, so that, and the travel director will rotate the position of where you're sitting, so that people that maybe like to take the front seat all the time won't always get that front seat. So this way you get different viewpoints and vantage points of being on the coach as well. So that's one thing that the travel director does. Memorable meals. So with Britain and Europe, you do get all your breakfasts included, some of your lunches, and then and about 50% of your dinners as well. Again, as I mentioned on my last seminar, is that we don't want to interrupt your day to make you have to join us for lunch, when we want you to actually really explore the destination that you're in. And then for dinners, of course, maybe you might want to try a local restaurant in town or something like that, and then experience it with the people you've traveled with or some people that you've met. And then that's the Real Ease part of it. And then, of course, we have part of our Real Ease is also our travel directors and our local specialists. And I'm sorry I'm being repetitive here again, but with our local specialists, our travel directors, of course, are there with you 24/7. They're the ones that travel throughout your journey. They really turn into your friend during the trip. And I always say, no request is too big or too small. They will repeat themselves over and over and over again, like she had to with me. Of course, as soon as I get into a moving vehicle, I start to fall asleep, which means I miss a lot of the things that she's talking about, he or she are talking about. So I always have to ask, and then she'll repeat herself. So I'm one of those people. And then, of course, our local specialists, they are there to help bring a destination to life with their stories, the emotion, the history. They've lived it, they've lived there, so they can share all of those experiences with you. And again, with our travel directors, they also are there for you for selling you the optional excursions, etc., and also just for advice. If you go to a particular city or town, you want to know where to eat for dinner, they're always full of information for that, with places to maybe go to, places to see, where to shop for a specific item that you might be looking for. So that's what our travel directors are there for. They're fully trained. We have over 300 travel directors, and they know their stuff. And then, of course, our last component is real joy. So we want to make sure that you build new friendships, lasting memories, and the greatest travel stories that you'll ever tell. So this was actually my group. These were my friends that I made in Devon and Cornwall. As you can see, it's a variety of ages. This was actually a smaller group. We only had 29 on this particular trip, but we had a little boy as young as 8 years old. And then we had another gentleman, he was 86, I think, 86 years old. So a big range of ages. Average age for Trafalgar is about 48. And the interesting thing is the little boy that was 8 years old, he's traveling with his family, his 13-year-old brother and his parents. And this was actually his 12th trip with Trafalgar. After this trip, they were actually going to Switzerland and doing another trip. So, and actually there were quite a few that were doing a 10th trip, a 12th trip. They were doing back-to-back trips with us. So it was really quite neat. There's one couple here. I always like to tell the story about these two ladies. And this is where you really get those friendships. You learn the stories about each other. But there were two ladies here from Australia, and they were traveling with each other. So this was in June. They were traveling with each other since, I believe it was March. They were doing a whole bunch of different trips. They just got off a 52-day cruise, and then they were doing this trip and then finishing off with an Ireland trip. And I'm like, wow, you guys must really like each other to have been traveling with each other that long. And she said to me, she goes, wow, we've had our moments. And I said, yeah, I think I saw one of those moments. They were fighting over an umbrella. So it's just really lovely, just the people that you get to meet, the stories that you hear, and just the friendships that you do make along the way. So again, with that Tread Right Foundation, making travel matter, we have 3 core elements of our Tread Right Foundation, which are caring for the planet, preserving places and wildlife, and helping people. And when you're on a Trafalgar trip, you truly are hitting on either 1 or 3 of these components throughout your trip. And we'll talk about those later on. Again, we are committed to your well-being, so we are taking health and hygiene very seriously in today's age. We have our travel directors who are fully trained in making sure that they are aware of every protocol throughout the areas that they're going to be traveling in. And then we have our 24/7 support that is also giving them guidance and telling them what some of the health and hygiene protocols may be. Our coach drivers, they are making sure that the coaches are fully disinfected every day, wiping everything down, disinfecting everything that is touched, every touchable surface. And then of course, they're also providing masks, hand sanitizer, anything like that that you may need as well. We are also dealing with trusted partners, so making sure that the hotels that we stay in are also adhering to those strict protocols that may be necessary. And then looking at the physical distancing. So the coaches, we may have to look at physical distancing, maybe some of the iconic attractions that we're going to, we have to make sure that they're also adhering to the physical distancing as well. So we just want to make sure that your safety is our biggest concern when you are traveling with Trafalgar. So on to the trip. So why Devon and Cornwall? Why this particular trip? There's so many things that you're going to see. You're going to see beautiful castles, landscapes, cathedrals, some stately homes, really quaint seaside villages like this one here that you see. They really are fairy tale towns. Sometimes there were moments where I actually felt that I was in a Disney movie. Lots of folklore, and then so many historical landmarks on this trip. So it really does give you a taste of absolutely everything. So you're going to see a lot of my photos here. They may be a little blurry, but they're actually, a lot of them are actually my photos that I took when I was on the trip. So here's just a little quick map of the journey of the Devon and Cornwall trip. You can see where London is situated, and everything is based south of London. You're going to go onto the coastal cities there, and you're going to start in London. You're going to stay 2 nights in Bristol. They've changed it on me. 1 night in Plymouth, 2 nights in Exeter, and then back to London. So you can see all the different areas that you're seeing. You're getting a really good sense of that southern part of England. So one of the things we did, of course, we stop in Windsor. So and I kind of mentioned this before too, where you're not always following the tour guide with the flag. So here, for instance, when we get to Windsor, the travel director will say, okay, you've got so much time here. Please make sure you're back at the coach by this time. Now, I will preface my trip to Devon and Cornwall. About 4 days before my trip to Devon and Cornwall, I injured my back. I have no idea what I did, but I've had bad back anyways. And I literally wasn't sure if I was going to be going on this trip, because it was to the point where I couldn't stand up straight. I was basically walking bent over at my waist. So I went for acupuncture one day, 2 days before I left. And that night I was able to stand up straight. So I thought, okay, I'm going. So of course, when I went, I wasn't walking very well. In fact, you saw the age range of the people that were there. I was probably in the middle of that range, and I was probably always the last person to show up at anything, even behind the lovely lady that we had with a walker. So that doesn't say a whole lot about my physical capabilities at the time. So when we got to Windsor, I wanted to see as much as I could, but of course it was my first day, so my walking was very, very slow. But what the lovely thing that Maria, our travel director, does is she tells you what line to go into, because not everyone wants to see Windsor Castle. So many people have been to London, they've seen Windsor Castle on the trip. So some of them just want to wander around the village. Maybe they just want to have a lovely lunch there. So I actually went into Windsor Castle. If you do go there, you have to purchase a ticket because it's not included with our trip, because it's not an actual sightseeing excursion, but it's about 24 British pounds per adult to get into it, because don't forget, it is part of the National Trust. So, you know, this is all giving back. So what I noticed though about it is the grounds are immaculate. Like there's not one blade of grass out of place. So you're talking, Lee, about your gardening. Well, this is the garden that you should be gardening or taking pictures of. It was absolutely immaculate. So that's just kind of part of Windsor Castle. Of course, don't forget the Queen is there every weekend. The week that we were there, Trump was just there about 3 days before us. So thank goodness we missed all that hoopla that would have been going on at that time. And then maybe when you're there, you might see the changing of the guards as well. So this particular area, this is the south wing of the upper ward. So that left tower, the tower on the left, is actually the official entrance to the state apartments, which is where all the guests would come and stay with them. And then this is St. George's Chapel, of course. So the most recent wedding that everyone knows of that happened there would have been Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in 2018. And then, of course, you can see the umbrellas. It was a rainy day, but we did catch the changing of the guards, so that was kind of cool. I had no idea what was going on, and we were all just standing there waiting, and all of a sudden we saw all the guards march down, so it was kind of neat. But then we had to get to the coach, so it was like, oh my goodness, so we had to get to the coach in time so we could move onwards. But it truly was wonderful. I wish I could walk, that I would have been able to spend a little bit more time there, but I because I was walking so slow, I wasn't able to see as much as I would have liked to have seen. And then, of course, we move on to Bath, but I'm going to call it Bath because I can't pronounce it properly. I feel weird calling it Bath. So we go to Bath, and of course, one of our stops is to see the Roman bath. So the nice thing is, it's an included attraction. So Maria handed us all of our tickets. We stood in a line ahead of all the rest of the people, and then we got handed, it's like an audio set. So you can see there's a lady on the top balcony in the left, and she's got a purple coat on. So she's actually standing at a viewpoint. And then when you stand at a specific area, it's like maybe number one, you push number one and you'll actually hear what she's looking at. So that type of thing throughout. So the nice thing is it's at your own pace. You get given the handset, you can go as slowly as you want through it, or you can rush through it if you'd like to. So I wanted to see it. Did I want to spend a lot of time there? Not really. I wanted to see what it was all about, but then I also wanted to walk around Bath as well. So these are just some of the images that I took there. I thought this statue was really cool. But then this little picture on the right-hand side, this is the Sacred Spring overflow. So basically it's where the surplus water from the spring will pour into the Roman drain, and then it flows into the river. So it really is amazing to think such forward thinking that they had when they built the Roman baths, because you have to remember that these were built in 60 AD. And so what I look at is, I look at this picture here, and this is kind of like their sauna back in the day. So what they did was they built all these pillars of red rock that you can, round square rock, oh my gosh. And then what they did is they put a floor on top of it, they put the steam in, and it would heat up the room. So it was really kind of neat to think that this was like a sauna back in 60 AD. Here's a better picture if you can see how they built up the floor, put a floor on top of it, shoot some steam through the heat through the bottom there, and that's how it heated up the floor. So really, really quite neat. You can tell the things that I thought were cool. And then of course at the end of the tour, you actually get to taste some of the thermal water. So you can kind of smell a bit of the sulfur, but it doesn't taste sulfuric. And it actually has 43 different minerals in it. So I thought I should take 2 glasses of it because my back was so sore that maybe it would help my back heal a lot quicker. But it's kind of warm, and I'm not a big warm water fan. But yeah, so it's kind of neat taking that. And then of course I had time to wander around Bath. So with Bath, you could, this was actually a cool little bridge. It is called the Pulteney Bridge, and it was built in 1769. And it was basically, it was originally a toll bridge, and it was to separate the 2 parishes on either side of the bridge. But now it's got a whole bunch of shops inside there. They close it to regular traffic, so just regular like tour coaches, taxis, and bikes can go across it right now. But it really is such a beautiful, beautiful area. Another thing that people could go see, one of our ladies on the trip, she really was into Jane Austen. So Jane Austen, they have the Jane Austen Center there if you read her books, because every book that she has, of course, she mentions Bath in all of her novels. So you could go see the Jane Austen Center. I actually had a chance to have a traditional Cornish pasty. I know I used to eat Cornish pasties at the pub called the Unicorn Pub, and it had gravy on it. You'd eat it with a knife and fork, but that was the totally wrong way to eat a Cornish pasty, because you're supposed to eat it like this in a little pocket with your hands. So the great thing is this cathedral that you see here is right across the square from the Roman bath. So there's this cute little square. They have entertainment. So I just grabbed a corner pasty, sat down, listened to the entertainment, and it was really such a nice, relaxing way to spend part of my afternoon. I did a little bit of shopping, so I had to pick up some souvenirs, and then I topped it off with a delicious raspberry pavlova ice cream. So I love raspberries, I love pavlova, and how they keep the meringue chips crunchy in this ice cream, I don't understand, but it was absolutely delicious. And then we go on to the Longleat Stately Home. This is our dive into culture experience. And the Longleat Stately Home is actually home to the 7th Marquess of Bath. In fact, they actually live on the 3rd floor of this beautiful house here. You're given a 45-minute private tour of the house before they open it up to the public. And actually, they'd opened this up in, when did they open it up? In like 1940, no. Hold on, when was the date? I gotta remember. It was, 1949, they opened it up to the public. They just thought, you know what, let's open this up, show people around. They were going through a little bit of hard times at the time, so they charged people to see it, and that was their way of making some money there. But it is so beautiful. You have to, you think about the history that we have here in Canada, 150 years old. Yeah, there are some beautiful areas that we saw in the last presentation with some history, but this is unbelievable. It was built in the 1500s. They have art and tapestry that date back to the 1500s. In fact, you can see on the 2nd floor, you can see all those areas where the drapes are closed, the curtains are drawn. They'd never open them, because if they open them, the daylight, the sun can affect a lot of the tapestry. So it is quite dark in there when you're doing the tours, but it's for a good reason. And then rumor has it, so I talked about ghosts, rumor has it that you might see a ghostly figure roaming around the halls, a lovely lady dressed in gray. So the history behind it, the story, whether you believe it or not, is in 1733, Lady Louisa, she married Viscount Weymouth, who at the time owned the Longleat estate here. So shortly after the marriage, Lady Louisa brought her staff over, some of her own servants, and she was particularly fond of one of her servants, which was one of the footmen. Nothing going on there. She just thought he was very good at his job, very attentive. But over time, some of the other servants grew jealous because, of course, she treated him a little bit nicer than the other ones. So they thought they would cause a little bit of a ruckus, and they told the Viscount that, oh, did you know that your wife is having an affair with this footman? So, of course, the Viscount had a fit of rage, and somehow this footman ended up dying at the bottom of the stairs. He accidentally mysteriously fell. And then it's known that they actually buried his body in the cellar. But the wife had no idea. She was asking where this footman is, and the Viscount would just say, oh, I saw him leave one night, and he said he's never coming back. So she didn't really believe him. So she started wandering the halls all the time looking for him, wondering where he was. And it actually took its toll on her, where she actually developed pneumonia and died at the young age of 22. So she still wanders the corridors looking for the footman in her gray dress. Believe it or not, that is the story of the gray lady in the dress. So that is the Longleat Stately Home. I, fortunately, again, did not see her, which was good, because I would have ran out of there very, very quickly. Of course, Longleat Stately Home, every typical stately home over there has wonderful gardens. So this is one of the many maze gardens that they have. Luckily, it was only knee-high because I did get stuck in it and I had to climb over the hedge to get out. But they do have some lovely gardens here. But one of their most famous gardens, if you've ever heard of this type of gardening, it's the Capability Brown Parkland. So his name was Lancelot Brown, and because he did such wonderful work with gardens, they called him Capability Brown. He got the nickname Capability Brown. This home is on 900 acres of land. And so what he did was he completely cleared out the formal Italian Renaissance garden, and he replaced it with all these rolling hills. This was all flat. And he created the hills, the rolling hills, the clumps of trees, and he's got some perfectly placed little lakes everywhere. So this is what they call a Capability Brown Parkland. He's actually quite well known for other very, very famous gardens. And then, of course, when they opened up this estate in 1949 to the public, they also decided to open up a safari park. So in 1966, they had a safari park opened up. They have over 500 different animals in the safari park. And then they also have this little amusement park. So it's quite amazing. You come over this hill and you see this huge, massive, stately home, but then you see the safari park, you see the amusement park. So a lot of locals actually go here for the weekend with their kids as a little day trip. So that is the Longleat Stately Home. Another excursion we got to do was the Laycock excursion. So this area is a little village. It's actually one of the oldest villages in England, and it's almost owned entirely by the National Trust. So you have to live here in order to drive into it. It's a very cute little area, and it might be familiar to people if you watch Downton Abbey, Pride and Prejudice, or most famously known for being some of the settings of Harry Potter. So you will see, I'm going to show you an abbey that they used for the interior of Hogwarts School, as well as this lovely house is known as Harry Potter's parents' house. So that's the outside of the house that they used for his house. And then, of course, basically, this particular town is a grid of 4 streets. That's it. It's just a little square. You can walk around the square. I walked around the square, I don't know how many times. And it basically looks exactly as it did 200 years ago, maybe without that air conditioning unit, though, and some of these electrical lights. But the oldest house is actually older than the 13th century abbey that you're going to see, that you see in the background there. And before the original source of income here was wool, and ever since the demise of that, they really haven't done a whole lot of development to this particular area. There is the abbey there that you can see. So that is the town of Laycock, or the village of Laycock. And then this was probably one of my favorite buildings that I saw. So this is in Bristol. This building you see is actually across the street from the hotel that we stay in Bristol. So you have time to explore Bristol on your own. And this particular church, it's called the Temple Church now. And it dates back to the 14th century. And actually that tower is really leaning. I call it the Leaning Tower of Bristol. But the tower and the walls of the church, as you can see, they actually withstood a bombing in World War II. The roof, of course, was completely destroyed, as were the building's wooden fittings and floors and all the glass windows and everything. But what you see is what survived. So I just find it so beautiful, a little eerie, but very, very beautiful. And what they found was in 1960, an archaeologist actually found the foundations of it, and found it was actually round. It was it was a round nave in the footprint of the church. So that original church was called Holy Cross. And then between 1300 and 1450, the Temple Church was actually gradually rebuilt, and they built it to be a rectangular parish that you see here. And then just outside this, so as much as it's so beautiful, they've got this beautiful garden outside, and then it's actually a cemetery as well. So that's why I kind of say it's a little eerie, but this particular building truly caught me, and it just is one of those ones that I look at it and that just brings me right back to Bristol. Then, of course, we have a Be My Guest experience. So this is actually a new experience. The one that we had before, we had to change it because of the hotel where we were staying. It really wasn't up to our standards. And of course, we have a survey. So once you travel with Trafalgar, we do send a survey out to you, and it's called FIFO, and we have what we call a FIFO rating. So we averaged 4.7 out of 5 with surveys of people that have been on our trips. And one of the things they commented on was the hotel that we stayed at in Biddeford. It wasn't really up to our standards, but it truly was the best hotel in the area. So they changed it, and we now stay in Plymouth, which means we had to change our Be My Guest experience and kind of reroute it a little bit. So now with this one, you actually you see the Sheppey cider. So they are a family in their 6th generation of cider making. It's a family-run business. It goes back to 200 years ago. So you'll actually learn the experience and history of this 200-year-old business of crafting cider. You'll actually get a cider tasting with the family. You'll see the tea rooms, the farm museum, as well as the visitor center. And then you'll have the cider tasting followed by a traditional cream tea. I'll talk all about cream tea later on. you get to see this particular area. So this is a view. So of course, as I mentioned before, if you have a sightseeing tour, that's when you're actually going to follow the guide. They'll tell you a little bit about the area. You get the audio box machine where you have a headset and a box that you can hear everything that the travel director or this local specialist is saying, whether you're right beside them or 40 people behind them. This is actually what we call a view, which means you'll actually get off the coach. You'll have a few minutes to take pictures, look around, and then you'll get back on the coach. If it is a visit, you actually spend more time than 15 minutes, and then a C means you're just driving by it. So this is a view, of course, of St. Michael's Mount, which is a tidal island. So very similar to, say, Mont Saint-Michel in France. So this is, of course, during high tide. So it's an island, but of course, during low tide, you can actually walk across. So make sure people have to time their visit to St. Michael's Mount, otherwise they might be swimming back. But when you're there, there's this great little store there. This is my hidden gem because I bought all of these. I bought about 12 of these. And of course, it's Cornish sea salt. So the area is known for their Cornish sea salt. So I don't know if you know that table salt, of course, is very highly processed. They strip it of most of its nutrients to leave almost pure sodium chloride. And then they also treat that salt with anti-caking agent so that it pours easily. Well, with this particular Cornish salt, it's really as pure and natural as can be. Nothing's added to it. Nothing's taken away either. So it actually retains about around 60 naturally occurring trace elements from the sea. So it's perfect in its biological balance, and it's actually lower in sodium chloride. So make sure you pick up some of this. I've given it away as gifts, and everyone's like, oh, I wish you went back there because I ran out and I want more. And I don't tell them that I still have about 12 in my pantry that I've been using. But it's yummy. And then, of course, we go to St. Ives. So this is one of those beautiful little seaside villages that you see. You have lots of time to explore here, go shopping. That picture that I had at the very beginning of why Devon and Cornwall with those big waves in the background, that was here. So as you can see by this picture, you can see the white caps on the sea. It was cold, it was windy, but it was so nice to see this beautiful town. It's got a beautiful beach there. It actually, the locals will go here to go to the beach because it's voted as one of the top 10 beaches in Europe. But it is a really quaint area. So you actually park at the top of the village, and then they have local little city buses that take you down to the main street, and then you can wander around on your own. So one of the hidden gems that our travel director told us was this Sloop Inn. And it's a great little pub with wonderful views. So I must admit that I hung out there for a while because it was so rainy. I didn't have a pint, but the person I was with had a pint. I had a really lovely hot chocolate. But then we waited, and then once the rain stopped, we were able to walk along the street as well. So that's the main promenade there. So that's just one area. The streets are lined with little shops as you go up the hill and everything like that. So it really was a lovely area, even with this stormy weather. And then we go to an area called Tintagel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tintagel, but this is where they say the King Arthur was born, if you believe in all that Arthurian history and folklore. So again, I couldn't walk it, which was really disappointing for me because I really wanted to see this, but I was able to see at the bottom, there's a castle there, and that's actually called the Camelot Hotel. It's actually a hotel. So I actually walked there and kind of got a glimpse of what I could see. But if you look at this picture, you can see on the left-hand side, on top of that hill, there's a wall. So that's a ruins of the castle there. And across on the larger portion of the island, you can kind of make out some walls there. And I'll kind of show you a little bit about it. So the rumor is that Merlin lived here. So you actually get to walk down to this little area that you can see here. And you can see the little cove, and you can see where Merlin lived, supposedly. But don't forget, the story about King Arthur, of course, is that his dad, King Uther, used Merlin's wizardry to disguise him as the Duke of Cornwall, because he lusted over the Duke of Cornwall's wife, Igernia. So she, of course, fell for it because he was disguised. They actually spent the night together, and out of that came King Arthur. So that is the beginning of the Arthurian saga. So whether you believe that story or not, the actual story of that captured the imagination of Richard, who was actually the Duke of Cornwall at that time in the 13th century, that he actually built the castle of Tintagel. And that started in 1230. It only lasted until about 1330, so only 100 years before it actually kind of started going into disrepair. So if you look at this picture, you can see there's a little house there. Okay, so imagine that, where that house is. And if you look to the left, there's some ruins. So keep that picture in mind. And now this is the other side. You're standing beside the house. So that gives you a really good image of what was there before. So I think this is just so beautiful. The walls that you can see there, you can see up top on the other side of the hill. And what they've done when we were there is they were actually building a bridge. So before you had to walk down, I think it's about 450 stairs. You had to go down, then you had to climb back up. But now they actually have a bridge that connects the two, so that's a lot better. But really, again, just an amazing, amazing area to imagine that this was there in the 1300s. Then we go to Exeter, and this is a little city in Devon. And we spend one night in Exeter, and we actually walk from our hotel to this little St. Martin's Church here, which is the one on the left. The other one's a pub. So right beside the church is the pub. But we go into this Exeter chapel, and we actually hear the University of Exeter Choral Choir sing. And this is part of our Make a Difference initiative, because what we do is we are supporting the church's conservation trust. I'm just going to let you listen to this a little bit. So I swear, I get goosebumps every time I listen to this. Being there, you hear it on the computer and it sounds beautiful, but actually being inside this church that was built in the 15th century, the acoustics are amazing. It is the tiniest, like what you see, you can see how wide it is. It truly is one of those memories that, again, I will hold very, very dear to my heart. And then we go to a little area called Dunster. This is where I felt like I was a fairy princess in a Disney movie. So it doesn't look like much, but the little town of Dunster, it's got cobblestone pathways. You've got the castle up in the hill there. It's a little village of only, I think it's 800 people. So not very big, but this is what I heard walking down the street. And I'm thinking, wow, that's so cool. Like I you know how Disney movies always have the princess, and after they get married, they have the bells ringing. And that's kind of all I could think about was this vision of that. Maybe I just wanted to be a Disney princess at the time too. But it truly was a magical stop for me here. And then, oh, see, I keep on saying, oh, this is another favorite. This is another favorite. But this was Lynmouth and Linton. It's 2 stays in one, basically. So what you're looking at here is Lynmouth. It's actually in the gorge. And then if you go 700 feet up, you're in the town of Linton. So it really is two villages in one. So how you get back and forth is you can either walk up to Linton, or you could take this funicular. It's four British pounds for a return, or 3 British pounds one way. But it's the world's steepest water-powered railway. So it's all done by water. You can hear the water gushing. You can see it all when you're standing there. And then, of course, they have the town crier, who is just, oh, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. And he talks about what's going on right now. So again, it was just another fairy tale moment for me. You can walk along the streets there as well. So that's again down in the Lynmouth area. And of course, you can stop for another ice cream. What makes their ice cream so good in these areas is that they actually make it with clotted cream and double cream. And it has no calories because of that. So, you have to enjoy an ice cream when you're in this area. And I just again, this is just to me a very magical picture. To me, it's just, I love this little picture here. Then, of course, the mystery of Stonehenge. So constructed between 3000 and 1500 BC. There's several theories as to why it was built, but no one is certain really why it was built. But it really was one of those places that I was looking forward to. So, you know, just to give you a picture, when you show up, when the coaches pull up, there's like the coach parking area. So there's a lot of people and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what's it gonna be? And you actually get a ticket from your travel director. Again, they give you another handheld audio phone type of thing so that you can listen around. But you get on these little buses again, like a little city bus, and they take you to the area where the rocks are actually formed. And then you get off, and I'm standing where there's a rope. So right where I am, there's a little rope about knee high, and it goes around the entire circumference of Stonehenge. So you can see in the back, there's little people on the other side. They're all on the other side of the fence. So you get to walk around, and again, they have little stops where it'll say number 1, number 2. You just push number 1 and you can actually hear something significant about Stonehenge itself, or maybe something significant about where you're actually standing, because there are some points where they built the rocks so that when the sun is setting, it goes perfectly through the rocks. And so there's a whole bunch of different stories. So it's really kind of neat. And again, it's at your own pace. So you can either listen to every single stop along the way, time depending, or you could, you know, kind of do what I did. I stopped at certain areas and then I kept on walking because of course I wasn't walking the fastest. And then also what's included with your admission to Stonehenge is you can actually go into the Stonehenge Museum as well to see all the different artifacts. And then this on the right-hand side is a Neolithic house, which is kind of a replica of what they believe the builders of Stonehenge may have lived in some 4,500 years ago. So again, so much history to see. And it's one of those awesome moments when you see it. You're just like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually looking at this. And then our last stop is Salisbury. So Salisbury Cathedral is one of the main things that you're going to see here. And it's known for being Britain's tallest spire for the church. So the cathedral itself, it's known for a few things. It actually is house to the world's oldest working clock that was built in 1386 AD, and it's still there. And it also has the best surviving copies. There's only 4 copies in the world. It has one of the 4 original copies of the Magna Carta. So that's located inside this church. It's 805 years old. And then this is the inside of it. So absolutely stunning church. There's stained glass windows everywhere. There's all these, there's the rectory. There's a whole bunch of different little areas to go into. But here's just one of the stained glass. This one's actually nicknamed the Blue Window. That's what Maria called it. You have to go see the Blue Window, but it's also called the Prisoners of Conscience window. So again, it's one of the many stained glass windows. It truly, this picture does it no justice, but it's a phenomenal stained glass window. And then they have this, which I always found was really interesting. It's the regimental flags of the Wiltshire Regiment. They brought all these flags to war. And if you look at the flag on the left-hand side, there's nothing left of it. And that's what I find so amazing, that, you know, these flags have been through so much that the only thing left is there's no fabric left on it. It's just the metal, the whatever they used underneath it. So yeah, anyways, I found that neat. Again, you'll get to see what I find neat. But lots of history inside Salisbury Cathedral. And then of course, food. So you have to have lots of food. You're gonna get a traditional meal as your farewell meal, which is gonna be roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. You get it in you actually go to the Oxenham Arms, which is an old pub where Charles Dickens actually was stuck there for an amount of time, and he actually wrote several chapters of a book there. So that's one of the things. You'll also get some Be My Guest experiences, as I mentioned. You'll have meals on your own. So of course, my second day, I could hardly walk, so I ordered room service. And when you're there, what do you have to get? You have to get fish and chips with mushy peas and sticky toffee pudding. So that was my room service. But here is my big debate. So this is what they call a scone, but I mentioned cream tea before. So I never knew what a cream tea was. When I got there and they said, oh, you're going to have cream tea, I'm thinking I'm going to get a cup of tea with a lot of cream. That is not the case. Cream tea is basically afternoon tea, and it's served with scones with clotted cream and jelly or jam. What is clotted cream? It doesn't sound very appetizing, but it's actually when they heat the full cream from the cow's milk, and they use either steam or a water bath, and then they leave it in a shallow pan to cool. And then what happens during this time, the cream content rises to the surface and it forms clots, otherwise known as clotted cream. So what they do is you can either be a Devonian, which is eating it on the left-hand side, so you'll have jam on top of the clotted cream, or you could do the Cornish method, which is putting jam on the bottom with the clotted cream on the top. This is a thing. If you're from the Cornish area, Cornwall, you're going to eat it on the right. And if you're from the Devon area, you will eat it according to the left, most people. So I actually tried it, and it actually tastes a little differently too, believe it or not, if you try it one way or the other. But I just naturally think that cream or butter should go on the bottom and jam should go on the top. The Queen likes it that way, so I am all for living like the Queen. So I ate it with the jam on the top. So those are some of the things you'll see a lot of the cream tea there. And of course, you can travel in a group if you like to. Bring your friends, bring your family, travel with Trafalgar in a group. Leah can book a group for you, get some really great group rates for you. Oh, and then of course, just a reminder here, all the different brochures that we do offer and the different destinations that we travel to. I know I talked about the USA, Canada with you last time, but we do have many other different brochures that are available for 2021 still. We do have some fall departures. Let's knock on wood that everything opens up and we can all get traveling again. So I want to thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this presentation and you all want to go to Devon and Cornwall, and you can meet our wonderful travel directors and see all of these iconic sites and attractions.
Thank you so much, Jodine. That was awesome. What a spectacular trip you went on. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah.
Wow. And saw so much.
And it's full of so much, so many things. And, some people say, oh, is it too much to see? And my theory was, at the end of the trip, I was sitting in my hotel room in London, because you start and you end in London. And one, I was waiting for someone to pick up my bags, which never happened. But the other part was that I just thought there was no way I would have seen half of the things that I saw if I was doing this on my own.
Yes.
And I was never exhausted. So even though my back was sore, I was never to the point where, oh, I have to lie down. I have to, I always found there was ample enough time to see all the different places. I never felt rushed, even though I couldn't walk very well. Or did I ever feel that like, okay, you know what? I'm really bored. I want to get out of this place, because there was always something to see. So it truly was remarkable.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was wonderful. And I agree, a group trip or a planned tour is the way to see a destination. You can do it on your own, but there is something about having the guide with you and local guides that you really get an inside experience. Doing it on your own, you really miss out. So thanks again. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. We look forward to having some of you join us next week. I will be sending out an email with the new travel talks for next week. You can check your inbox late Sunday night or early Monday morning. I'll be sending it out then. So yeah, and everyone is saying thank you in the chat box there. It looks like we don't have any questions, Jodine. Just
very good.
Thank you. Looks like an awesome trip. On the, what does Keelan say? On the last group picture you shared, everyone is leaning, she said.
Well, that one.
That's the end of the trip.
That's actually,
actually
in Ireland. I think it's just the way we're sitting. I'm leaning because I tend to lean. Maybe it's the image. I don't know. We're at Giant's Causeway here. So,
yes.
Yeah, so all the rocks and everything, so maybe we were leaning.
Trying to stay on the rock.
Yeah. Actually, the gentleman in the front with the blue cup there, the bubble gentleman, that's actually our CEO. So that's Gavin Tolman. So he's one of the
wow.
So this was actually an incentive trip that we got to go on. So these are all other sales managers from Asia, from America, from South Pacific, from England. We were all fortunate to go on this trip where he joined us for a couple days. So yeah, we had just finished yoga at the Giants Causeway Visitor Center. So,
oh, wow. That's a
that's
unique
why we're leaning.
Very good. Well, thanks again. And I look forward to seeing you sometime in the future. Not sure when, but
Yes.
take care. And we'll see everyone else maybe next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again for joining
Bye.
us. Bye-bye.